Welcome back to another FPL video. This will be the best wildcard team for Gameweek 22, and there's still a long way until the deadline, so plenty of content is headed your way. If this video gets to over 200 likes, we're going to do a reaction stream over the weekend, and you can see some of my initial thoughts heading into the Gameweek 22 deadline, and a sneak peek into my thoughts for my transfer plans, which you'll see developed in the team selection videos as well. Let's get straight into this, building the best 50-man squad, talking about the confirmed Blank Gameweek 29 fixture after the FA Cup results yesterday. This video is recorded on the Wednesday, the 17th of January, so there's a lot to discuss. Double Gameweek 25 and Blank Gameweek 26 will also be taken into account when building this wildcard squad. Without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. There haven't been many standout goalkeepers in FPL this season, and that's why I would opt for two cheap goalkeepers for a combined total of 8.4 million, starting with Dubravka at 4.2. He's got good fixtures coming up. Aston Villa is going to be tough in Gameweek 22, but after that, it's a sea of green in the FDR, and Dubravka, I think, can turn things around. He has been quite good in recent games, performing 18+ saves against Man City and Liverpool, and he's capable of some good returns, but Newcastle just haven't kept the clean sheets, and since Nick Pope's injury, Newcastle have won one Premier League match and lost 6, and that's since Dubravka started the games, and that's been a bit unfortunate. Newcastle have so many injury problems everywhere, and I think that injury blow to Joelinton is perhaps the worst of them all because he is integral in that midfield. But Dubravka, I think, can turn things around and rotate very well with the second goalkeeper that we're going for. He technically will be first choice, and that is Areola, who's got 29 points in the last 3 game weeks, with Sheffield United up next in Gameweek 21. Let's see how he fares, but West Ham lost in the FA Cup to Bristol City, and that has repercussions for Gameweek 29, as I'll discuss later in this video. But I think these two goalkeepers is absolutely fine for now. If you wanted to go for more expensive choices, I would consider Alisson, Raya, Pickford and Martinez, probably in that order. Maybe you could put Martinez ahead of Pickford based on fixtures, but it's quite close between those four. And apart from that, it's very difficult to really have many standout goalkeeper picks this season. Kyle Walker picked up his second assist of the season in that 3-2 victory against Newcastle United, and he picked up 2 bonus points in the process. He was quite good going forward, but defensively he was suspect for both goals, and that's where you could question the bonus points he got. But I think with Walker, he could be a good, solid option. He's played the vast majority of minutes for Man City in the Premier League, which is very rare to get from a Man City defender in the Pep Guardiola era. And with that double game week in 25 coming up against Brentford and Chelsea at home, it's a great opportunity to have that defensive coverage, and then you can focus on the attackers, one midfielder, and then Erling Haaland up top if he's fit and available. So Kyle Walker could be a nice entry point if you are looking for that defender. Alternatives would include Ruben Dias and Gvardiol, and apart from that, there's a lot of injuries and rotation happening there. Akanji missed out the Newcastle game through injury. John Stones is still out, and I wouldn't really trust him because of his injury record regardless. So I think Kyle Walker is the safest option by far at this moment in time. The second defender I'm going for is Pervis Estupiñán, who I discussed in the transcripts video the other day. Be sure to check that out. I'd highly encourage you to do so, and he's probably the best defender to buy right now in Gameweek 22 because of the fixtures. It's a sea of green for Brighton, and they are second in the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating, over the next 6 game weeks. Only Man City are above them, and that's purely because of the double game week they have in Gameweek 25. So I think Estupiñán is a no-brainer. Brighton aren't the safest in terms of clean sheets, but they have improved defensively in the last couple of weeks. I'd also go for Pedro Porro, who conceded twice to Man United, but still got an assist and 2 bonus points. This is the norm with him. If he gets an attack in return, he is very likely to get some bonus points along the way too, because he's on all set pieces until Maddison is back, which could be in Gameweek 22. But to be honest, if I were Ange Postecoglou, I'd have them share them, because Pedro Porro's delivery is absolutely sensational from time to time, and I think he's very consistent with his attacking output, both from open play and set pieces. So I think he's a very good pick. He's still worth the money despite him creeping up towards 6 million. He's getting close to that price point, but I still think he's worth it, and probably the second best defender in the game right now. I still think Trent is first, but that all depends on when he returns. It should be in Gameweek 22 or 23, and I think in this wildcard squad I would include him, and if he's not available, you could always bench him, but of course I can understand the reservations some of you may have with that pick. I will show you an alternative wildcard squad later in this video, and there will be no Trent, and I'll show you a few different avenues in each position. But for me, Trent is still by far the best option, and Liverpool could double in Gameweek 25 if they reach the Carabao Cup final. So that Luton Town fixture in Gameweek 26 would become a blank, and it would go perhaps into Game Week 25, thus forming a double, and you can always sell Trent around Game Week 26. That could be the play there. The final defender is going to be an interesting one. I don't think there's a standout here. It's very difficult to pick that fifth choice, but I'm purely going for the fixtures and going for Mark Gay. It might not be everyone's cup of tea. I understand that, but a decent number of FPL points. And with those fixtures, I think Palace could focus more on their defensive qualities because going forwards, they are very inconsistent. And with so many injuries to the likes of Elise and Eze throughout this season, I think their best chance of getting points is through their clean sheets and defence. I am persisting with Saka, which some of you may disagree with, and I completely understand that. He has been off form. He scored in his last Premier League game, but he was absolutely terrible for most of that match against Fulham and in the FA Cup against Liverpool. I mean, it was such an underwhelming performance. He got into great positions, but one quality that Saka's always had is his decision making. He had none of that against Liverpool or in the recent Premier League games, but I'm hoping for a better second half of the season. Arsenal are still in Dubai, resetting, refreshing, and I think this break could be crucial to them and they can start going on a run and maybe going away from this 1 win in 7 across all competitions, which has been frankly detrimental to their season, and they need a huge response and a massive second half of the season to really bounce back and have any chance of winning the title. I think Arsenal will probably finish third, but you never know in football. Things change so quickly, and let's see what happens after that Crystal Palace game over the weekend where many of us have captained Saka. It might be last chance saloon for him in many of our teams, but I'd still back him to do well in this second half of the campaign. Now, the second midfield I'm going to go to is Pascal Gross, who's still yet to play in Game Week 21. He was also a transfer in for me, and I was very close to going to Richarlison instead. I might live to regret that decision, but Pascal Gross has those fixtures, and one key reason why I went for Gross over Richarlison is that Spurs are very likely to blank in Game Week 26 versus Chelsea if Chelsea were to reach the Carabao Cup final, whilst Brighton have no problems in terms of blanks until Game Week 29, which is a very likely blank to happen, and that would be because of FA Cup results. But with Pascal Gross, what you get is a consistent starter, 90 minutes in pretty much every single game, on set pieces, a bonus points machine, very consistent, and he has the high ceiling because of the bonus points. No blank game weeks until Game Week 29. There's a lot to like with Pascal Gross, and I think he's a massive differential who can make a great difference in 2024. So Pascal Gross is in this team, and the same goes for Foden. I would rather go for Foden than Kevin De Bruyne. Despite De Bruyne's amazing appearance and cameo against Newcastle, I still think Foden just offers that consistency of minutes and starts, and he's been able to keep injury-free for a very long while. You can't say the same about Kevin De Bruyne, and with these fixtures coming up, it's a packed schedule for Man City. I'm not so sure if De Bruyne will start most of those games. He might also get some short cameos, 10-20 minutes, and he won't always deliver 12 points off the bench as he did in that fixture. So I think we should temper our expectations with De Bruyne. I think he is still a buy because of the double game week and the fixtures coming up. I discuss him in the transfer tips, but I'd still rather go for Phil Foden right now. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. The fourth midfielder is Cole Palmer. I mean, he's just absolutely terrific in FPL. He's on penalties. He scored plenty of them this season. From open play, he has been improving in recent weeks. He's got the odd assist, and whenever he gets an attack in return, he is very likely to get the bonus points. So despite getting booked in Game Week 21, he delivered 10 points. For those that captain him, of course, fair play to those of you that did that. And I think Palmer has been a sensational option and probably in the top 3 midfielders this season based on value and consistency. Now, the final midfielder I'm going to go to is Richarlison. I mean, he keeps on finding a way into these wildcard teams because he's in a purple patch, and you've got to take advantage of players who are in the form of their life, and that's what Richarlison currently is undergoing. Now, he's another one where you might have to temper your expectations because we all know Richarlison throughout his time at Tottenham, his record is pretty awful and he's been very inconsistent. But I think this season, even before his purple patch, he's been doing quite well, just not getting the attacking returns, particularly the goals. But now he is playing down the middle. He is going to be the main source of goals and the threat, getting the bulk of the chances, whilst Heung-min Son is off to the Asian Cup. Now, once he returns, Richarlison could be a problem and start to rotate a little bit with Timo Werner, but I'd still expect Richarlison to start most games and be a key figurehead for Tottenham Hotspur until the end of the season. The only concern with him is a potential blank in Game Week 26. So if you have a lot of Chelsea and Spurs players, you might have to be careful with that. Also Liverpool too, and it could require free hit or taking hits, making multiple transfers to navigate Game Week 25, which will be a double for the likes of Man City and potentially Liverpool, and then the blanks for 4 of the best teams in the country. Perhaps I got a bit carried away because you wouldn't really class Luton Town as one of the best teams in the country, and also with Chelsea, Tottenham perhaps with the way they're playing, but even then that is debatable. Liverpool would definitely be the only one in consideration. But moving on to the forward line, Erling Haaland is red flag currently. I talked about the latest injury updates to the likes of Jarrod Bowen and Haaland in my recent transfer tips video, and Pep Guardiola said he hopes Haaland is back by the end of January, but it's still a massive doubt, and if that's the case, you could go without Erling Haaland and go to other forwards we're going to be discussing very soon. But I'm a bit concerned about Haaland because if you wildcard this week, for example, and then Haaland's available for Game Week 23, it would incur a -4 hit potentially unless you have a lot of money sitting in the bank. So it's a difficult one. I don't like booking in transfers too much when you're wildcarding, but you might have to do that. Go without Haaland in Game Week 22 and buy him back around Game Week 23 or 24. But each week passes by and Haaland is still not available, and Guardiola keeps on giving us these updates. And to be fair to him, he has been honest, which is quite refreshing for a change. But it's very strange what's happening with Erling Haaland, and I think they're being very careful with him and trying to ensure they don't aggravate the injury so it becomes something more serious. So I have included him, but if you weren't to make it for Game Week 22, I would highly consider Ivan Toney, who will have the most fixtures of any forward in FPL, because he's going to be having a double game week in 25 against Liverpool and Man City, and Game Week 29 has its first confirmed fixture. With both Burnley and Brentford out of the FA Cup, they'll be playing each other at Turf Moor in Game Week 29, and we have the first confirmed fixture of the biggest blank game week of the season, and one of Arsenal versus Chelsea or West Ham versus Aston Villa will also take place in Game Week 29, with the other fixture becoming a blank and thus forming a double game week later in the season for those two respective clubs. So keep an eye out for those updates. It will all be provided here on the channel, and a lot of people will be going for Ivan Toney because he has the most fixtures of any forward over the next 6 game weeks up until Game Week 29, where he doesn't blank in Game Week 29, has a double in Game Week 25, and of course has fixtures before and after that period as well. So Ivan Toney will be very popular. I'll discuss him very soon, but in this wildcard team, he doesn't make it still because I'm not a big fan of the fixtures. The double includes Liverpool and Man City, and Brentford are really struggling at this moment in time. So I would still go for Ollie Watkins, but a lot of you will be making this move of Watkins to Ivan Toney in the near future. I still like Aston Villa's fixtures, and Watkins has the most points of any FPL forward, and whenever I've sold him, I've been burnt, so I'm not going to go down that avenue just yet. The final forward is Dominic Solanke, who has a pending double game week. We don't know when that's going to be exactly, but I would go for him, and the long-term fixtures up until Game Week 32 are fantastic for the Cherries. Over the next few, it's a bit difficult. I mean, you've got Liverpool in Game Week 21 still yet to be played, but I would back Solanke to still be a great option in the forward line, and I still rank him above Toney, despite the double game week for Brentford, and also a confirmed fixture in Blank Game Week 29. Using FPL.team, you can see my starting 11 for this wildcard squad. Areola is in goal, with Walker, Estupiñán and Pedro Porro as the back three. Saka, Foden, Gross and Richarlison complete the midfield, with Solanke, Watkins and Haaland completing the team. But Haaland is a major doubt for Game Week 22, and you might have to go for another forward entirely. You can always bench him for Trent or Cole Palmer. Benching those two, by the way, is extremely difficult to do in any game week, and you could argue this wildcard squad has too much squad depth. Normally, I don't like that, but recently I've been going for this approach, and it has done very well, and also adapted very well to circumstances like Trent and Bowen picking up injuries and being doubts for Game Week 21. But as I mentioned in my transfer tips video, Bowen could feature against Sheffield United at the weekend, and West Ham are very hopeful that that would be the case. And now with them being eliminated of the FA Cup, I think that's only going to add to that, and Ben Rama's suspension for the next 3 games. So West Ham have some problems of their own, and Bowen will be rushed back in, I think, and hopefully not too much, which also leads down to maybe him being subbed off due to an injury. That's what we don't want to see, but it is a possibility, to be quite honest with you. And you can see the bench: Dubravka, Trent, Palmer and Mark Gay. And to be fair, that could easily be a bench boost team if Trent is available. So there are some concerns here. You're going to have bench points with this wildcard squad. That is inevitable. And in terms of expected points, it's 60.1, 0.8 million in the bank for me. And my squad value is roughly around 105 million. But overall, I think this squad looks pretty decent. There's always going to be points of contention, and it's all down to your personal preferences. You might want an Arsenal defender because they still have decent long-term fixtures. I think they're quite average overall, but they have great underlying numbers, and if they can start to convert them into actual clean sheets, they will be probably the best team defensively and keep the most clean sheets until the end of the season. So that is my wildcard squad. The first one, the main one I've discussed today. There will probably be an updated version before the Game Week 22 deadline. Let me know if you want to see that, and smash the like button, ensuring that we get to over 200 likes. I'm now going to show you an alternative wildcard squad with some different picks in each position. I've kept the same goalkeepers with this setup, but with 1 million in the bank, and maybe you'll have more in your situation, you could upgrade Dubravka to Raya as one particular example. But in the defense, we've made two key changes: Gabriel Angusto in for Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mark Gay, and that also allows you more funds to buy Jarrod Bowen in the midfield, and also Kevin De Bruyne. That is a key upgrade, you could argue, but De Bruyne's minutes will be a big concern, and you've still got Saka and Richarlison in there, the same front three. Cole Palmer is still on the bench, which is just not really sitting right with me. He's delivered in every single big game he's played in so far this season, and of course the bench would still be quite familiar with Dubravka, but the rest with Gabriel Angusto is different. As I alluded to earlier, the expected points is quite low because Kevin De Bruyne isn't expected to start, and Jarrod Bowen has 0 expected points based on his injury situation. But I'm very confident he'll be available in Game Week 22, and there's even a chance he will feature against Sheffield United at the weekend in Game Week 21. Now, in terms of some alternatives elsewhere who aren't in these two wildcard squads I've discussed, it would be Alisson, Martinez, and Raya in the goalkeeper position. You can also consider Pickford, who's the joint highest scoring goalkeeper in terms of FPL points. In the defence, it's a bit more difficult, but Doughty would be a consideration. Remember, he could blank in Game Week 26 if Liverpool reach the Carabao Cup final, but that fixture could fall under Game Week 25, thus forming a double game week, and I think Doughty would be a very popular option and by far the best Luton Town have to offer. Apart from that, I do struggle with the defenders. Maybe Mikalenko or Tarkowski would enter our thinking. Maybe a Konsa or Alex Moreno, but I'd more be looking at Konsa. I'm not a big fan of the defenders, to be quite honest with you. Dalot could be a consideration with the long-term fixtures for Manchester United, but I think that is pretty much what I would limit it to. Kyle Walker or any Man City defender of your choice, Estupiñán, Pedro Porro, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and then Arsenal defenders like Saliba and Gabriel. I think they're the two best by far, and I would still back them to do quite well in the long term. With the midfield, I would be looking at Jota as a consideration, and it wouldn't be surprising if Egypt were knocked out early of AFCON, and that would mean Salah's back in Game Week 22. And imagine if Haaland was available from his injury, and you've also got Salah returning. It could be carnage in terms of the hits people take to get both of them in, or choosing one over the other, and that would lead to variance. So let's see what carnage ensues. But if Egypt were to qualify to the next round, then you would expect Salah to be back between Game Weeks 23 and 25. So there's a lot to discuss over the next couple of weeks, that's for sure. In terms of other midfielders, I'd be considering Gordon, Douglas Luiz, and also, of course, the other Asian and African players once they return, like Hwang Hee-chan, Kudus, and Heung-min Son. But I would be looking at those three more so later in the future, and I'd be focusing on the ones you see on screen, the ones from the original wildcard team we discussed earlier, and of course some alternatives I just mentioned right now. Odegaard would definitely be a shout. Rashford could start entering one of his purple patches and go on a great run, but of course a lot of hypotheticals, and let's wait and see what happens. With a forward line, I think the two main alternatives would be Ivan Toney, and a lot of you would argue he should be in here. So you know what, just for those purposes and changing things up a little bit, I'm going to be selling Ollie Watkins and going for Ivan Toney in this alternative wildcard squad. And of course the other one would be Joao Pedro with those fixtures, but I do prefer Pascal Gross, to be quite honest with you, based on the minutes and the consistency of starts. I still think Joao Pedro could be benched from time to time, but when he does start, he is very efficient and gets a lot of goals or assists per 90 minutes. So that is pretty much it with the best 15-man squad. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Will you be going for Erling Haaland, or will you just save him for later in the season? And what are your plans to have maybe Erling Haaland, De Bruyne, and Salah coexisting? Which sacrifices will you be making? And will you even be going for those three, and maybe instead going for Trent at the back and going for Saka, Bowen in the midfield, and a more balanced approach overall? But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to the 200 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards 23k subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, and the FPL League. All of that is there. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 21, 22, and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.